So our third presenters this morning are the Mokami Status of Women. Good morning, whenever you're ready.
I will do my best to talk as slow as I can. Mokami Status of Women appreciates the opportunity to make a closing statement to the panel today. In our March 29 submissions, we focused on three main concerns. First, the local socioeconomic impacts of a large-scale development like the Lower Churchill Hydroelectric Project. We raised 5 key priorities: violence against women, housing, childcare, poverty, mental health, and addictions. Second, we emphasized the inadequacies in NALCOR's current environmental impact assessment and related labor market issues. Third, we made recommendations for preventing and or mitigating the negative social impacts of this development on the women and communities of the Upper Lake Melville region. Today, I will elaborate on these issues, taking into account the response from the proponent and related material before the panel. First, we want to emphasize that as a Crown corporation, NALCOR, unlike private industry, has an interest in and social responsibility to contribute to a healthy, socially, and economically sustainable community, in addition to the development of the Lower Churchill. We also assume that the federal and provincial governments who have the final say on this development share these interests. We were stunned by NALCOR's submission to the panel, claiming there will be no long-term socioeconomic impacts on the community of Happy Valley Goose Bay from its hydro development. We are further surprised to see in their final statement to the panel they claim the approach and methodology to assess the socioeconomic effects of the project was appropriate and thorough. They go on to claim NALCOR carried out extensive consultation with women's organizations, Aboriginal communities, and local municipalities in order to determine potential socioeconomic effects of the project and to develop effective mitigation strategies. NALCOR submits that no real evidence has been submitted to suggest that its local consultation was in any way inadequate or that women's issues have not been adequately addressed through the Gender Equity Program. These are outrageous statements. Our presentation raised important concerns that NALCOR has dismissed as not being real evidence. They are demonstrating callous disregard for the concerns we raised about the negative impacts on women and our community. We would respond that NALCOR has submitted no real evidence that they understand or want to understand the needs of women and communities, nor have they submitted any real evidence that they understand the meaning of gender equity and what it takes to achieve it. NALCOR's response to our submission is a telling indication. Rather than acknowledge the likely problems and offer to work with us to prevent or mitigate them, they simply deny them and dismiss us. NALCOR claims they had extensive consultation with women's organizations, but I am the executive director of the women's organization in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and I had to rack my brains to recall any conversation I had with NALCOR. There have been no meetings arranged with our board to discuss this development. They've had years to do so, and they never approached our board to discuss what this development could mean for women in our community. This is why we emphasize the need for a moratorium on further development until a meaningful process is established where key stakeholders are engaged in a collaborative consultative process that includes a gender-based analysis. To ensure a healthy, sustainable community in the context of Lower Churchill development requires a shift from NALCOR's current mindset. NALCOR must approach development in a manner that ensures social well-being and development occurs alongside economic development for now and well into the future. From the basis of this shared interest in the viability of our community, we urge the panel to take the following actions: support the recommendations that we previously submitted, endorse and recommend to the federal and provincial governments the implementation of the following 3 core principles and practices, in part outlined by the Mackenzie Valley Environmental Assessment Joint Panel, at all stages of the process as a means to ensure our local well-being now and into the future. A sustainable community approach that entails both economic and social development, the use of gender analysis throughout all processes and to inform all levels of decision-making, an inclusive approach to community engagement and consultation, and a means of positioning the women's centers in Labrador as key stakeholders. We urge this panel to support our recommendations as necessary steps to make sure that the local community and women within it do not suffer socially, economically, culturally, or environmentally from Nalcor's hydroelectric development on the Lower Churchill.
Our basic question is this: how can an adequate social impact assessment be claimed by Nalcor? In an environmental impact assessment report spanning hundreds of pages, the social component of the socioeconomic baseline study is covered in 14 pages. We said in our original submission that Nalcor, not organizations like Mokami Status of Women, have the responsibility to demonstrate that they have done sufficient research to reach their conclusions. Yet Nalcor claims the community has not provided evidence to the contrary. We have certainly pointed out that Nalcor is basing its conclusion on very limited science, that the community knowledge and expertise contradict their conclusion, that knowledgeable researchers and scientists from FemNorthNet, for example, point to a vast amount of research and scholarship and best practices in this field that clearly indicate a cause for concern, vigilance, and accountability that is much more substantial. In the 14 pages, this study only speaks to social infrastructure and services. Their evidence to substantiate their claim for no significant social effects, as cited in the bibliography, are roughly 5 related personal communications and quite a few stats acquired from government internet sites. There is a wealth of scholarship out there, including best practices on doing social impact assessments, that is ignored. Further, Nalcor's closing statements have tried to, 1, shift the burden of proof to the community. We don't believe this is fair. 2, have dismissed our local Indigenous and community expertise regarding the social and cultural issues within our community. 3, they appear to imply that people in our community who do not benefit from the project, and indeed will be disadvantaged by the project, actually choose to be disadvantaged, with their statement in paragraph 309 that says, quote, "The project offers choice to the residents of Labrador to avail of the economic opportunities if they so choose." Interesting. The poor apparently choose to be poor. 4, dismissal of claims that local consultation, including with local women's groups, is sufficient when we clearly state that it has not been so. 5, Nalcor is giving lip service to the importance of a gender-based analysis. And 6, is continuing to dismiss their obligations beyond the workforce to the community's well-being, stating that government departments will take care of it. Furthermore, they disregard any responsibility due to additional strain on an already stressed community with the statement that, quote, "It is important to remember that the project cannot solve every pre-existing problem or capacity shortage in each of the local communities." We do not expect Nalcor to solve the pre-existing problems in our community. However, we do expect Nalcor, as a responsible Crown corporation, to take responsibility for the very real impacts this development will create. In order to do this, Nalcor must adopt the approach to social impact assessment advocated by the Mokami Status of Women's Council and FemNorthNet in our presentations to the panel. And we thank you very much for the opportunity to present again today.